Welcome to the Growing Your Financial Business the Woman's Way podcast. I'm Robin Crane, and I was a financial advisor for over a decade. But before that, I was a singer-songwriter. And now, even as a mom of three with a teenager, toddler, and a baby, I run a seven-figure business helping women in financial services grow their businesses and make a bigger impact. In this podcast, I'll bring you financial advisors, industry influencers, and highly successful entrepreneurs to give you innovative strategies designed for women. So get ready to learn how to get in front of the right people, get more ideal clients, and be able to grow your ideal business so you can live your ideal life.
Welcome to Growing Your Financial Business the Woman's Way. This is Robin Crane. I'm here with Heather Venenga-Whipple. Did I say that right?
You did, yes.
This is hilarious because we've known each other now almost about two years, or is that 1 year? I can't even do that.
1 year.
1 year. Gosh, so we started, in the pandemic, or right after it kind of started, we started working together. And I've been pronouncing your name Venenga for like a year, and now I'm like, just before we jump on this podcast, it's Venenga. Okay, that sounds cooler than Venenga. So Heather has been in the industry for 7 years, and I brought her on because she's kind of like, I don't know, can we say your financial advisor next door? You know, kind of like you've been in the industry for quite some time, but not for 20, 30 years. Your story, I think, is really interesting because in 2019, your income was only $20,000. And 2020, with the changes that we made and working together, and because you're so dang coachable and you do everything, I was afraid to swear there, but darn coachable, you do everything I tell you to do, like, and beyond that, like you expand on it, and you're so amazing that you were able to in 2020 do $100,000. Your income was $100,000 take home, which is incredible, especially because you said really the work started halfway through the year and during a pandemic. So what we really want to talk about today is how to attract the right prospect, because that's one of the things that Heather has really honed in on. And that's one of the things that we've really worked to do. And she's done a phenomenal job. And I'll just mention this one last thing about you, Heather, before we jump in, is that your gross revenue, you said in 2019, shows how much expenses are there if they do the math, but was $80,000. And last month, your gross revenue was $80,000. So boom, it's not only just 2020, but this year is looking really, really amazing, and you're just killing it. So welcome to the show.
Thanks. Yeah, it's good to be here.
So tell us how you even got into financial planning or became a financial advisor, and how you even ended up where you are today.
Yeah. So I ran long-term care facilities for about 17 years, and I was in corporate, climbing the corporate ladder. I enjoyed what I did. But it was a lot. It was pretty crazy. And one day I came home, my husband said we should do something different, and he wants to move back and take over the family farm. So we left Kansas and moved back to South Dakota. And I got to reinvent myself at that point and decide what I wanted to do. And I knew I wanted to build a business for myself. I had been building businesses for corporate, and I wanted to do something for myself. I got connected with a company, a captive company, and I joined Thrivent and became a financial advisor there. So
awesome. So tell us let's bring you to 2019, and then instead of starting from the beginning, because we all know like the beginning is you can have some. I mean, you have to kind of go friends and family, and you do all that, it's just really tough. And I think it's also effective sometimes at the beginning. I mean, a little bit. As you're using you're using your warm market, and people love you, and you have a lot of credibility from your past, even having like experienced long-term care. But what happened in 2019 where you didn't have success? Like, what do you think was not working that you weren't able to attract the right prospect?
No, it was crazy because I was working really hard. It wasn't that I wasn't putting the hours in. I think what resonated with me and what I heard from you, and I was kind of trying to seek out some coaching, was, the old ways don't necessarily work. And I think women advisors are different, which is a good thing. I think our approaches need to be different. I think what clients want and expect and need changes as we all have more information readily available to us. People are more into exactly what they need and have more resources. And so I knew I needed a different way of approaching things. The old way wasn't working. The cold calling, the calling lists. I was doing some workshops, which I was enjoying greatly, but I definitely wasn't getting the response I wanted from that, even the conversion. So, yeah.
Okay, got it. So you were working hard, and I did the same thing, when I was an advisor. Like, I did what they told me to do. I did a lot of activity. I worked really hard, and it will work eventually. Like, there are advisors that did kind of the old traditional thing, for 20, 30 years, and they're killing it. Maybe even doing 7 figures now, because it's a recurring revenue industry. It's a great model, but those first 5 to 10 years, even if it's not just sticking and just getting, like, all of a sudden you get all these referral after referral, then it's hard, because you just do those same things that don't really work efficiently. So tell them, how did you start? Like, what did you change in 2020, especially, or actually, before you jump into that, tell me a little bit more, like, I don't want to say rock bottom, because I don't think you ever hit rock bottom, but like, what made you get to a point where you're like, I need to do something differently, and I need to look for outside help. I'm not maybe necessarily getting it within the broker dealer I'm at, even though, they're trying tremendously, right. But how did you get to that point where you were willing to do something different and even invest in yourself? Because I know that was a big conversation we had.
It was huge. It was huge. I obviously had conversations with leadership and people, and I was always seen as a good advisor within the company. I always blew past minimums, and I almost always made conference. I mean, I was hitting the marks. So when I would go to them, they would be surprised that I was, I remember having a conversation saying, I'm almost out of here. Like, I'm almost done. And if things don't change, something's got to change. And I feel like I'm responsible for my own actions and my own outcome. And I think I've always really believed that my what I get paid is my report card for if I'm helping people or not, right? And I felt like I'm failing. This is not working. And so I just remember being there, and I'm like, okay, well, this is, you do it or you don't. Like, you're either all in or you're going down the road and find something else to do, because I had always been successful in my life financially. And it's like, I'm not going to linger here in this agony. And I've always felt like I could be a really good financial advisor. Even in the times then I thought, gosh, I'm just not connecting the dots. Like, it's just not quite moving forward like it should. And I think hindsight, looking back, it was a total mental game. I think that you say borrow my beliefs, and that's totally what I do, right? Like, I needed somebody just to say, do this, and you're going to be amazing at this, and just take these steps. And I spent a lot of the beginning of COVID just sitting and watching all your trainings, all your videos. And it was a gift to me to have that time, and just learning good, sales techniques. And I know we call them sales techniques, but really it's just getting to what people want and need. Like, how can I help you? Like, what keeps you up at night, and what things do you really want and need? That's so key. And when you start doing that instead of the old way, you get excited too, right? Like, I want work to be fun, and as an advisor that can really get to what people really need and be able to connect them to that, that's huge. So
awesome. So let's give them like kind of the 1, 2, 3. So 1, 2, 3 is to attract the right prospect. What would you say is number 1? I'm testing you on my stuff.
You really have to get to who you want to help, because that's what it's about. Like, who do I want to help, and who do I relate to? And I work with farm families. Farm wives a lot of times are the drivers of succession planning, and that is a big bulk of my business. And getting to how do I help them? So the first step is who are you? Who do you really want to connect with, and how can you help them? And okay. Yeah. So that's my first step. So
yeah, let me chime in on that. Sorry, I wasn't, you're done. So the who, I think what happens with a lot of people is identifying, it's usually talked about as identify your target market, or, people say, we all know, everyone says the riches are in the niches, or I think that's part of, maybe think and grow rich. Like, the riches are in the niches. Which is true, but it's extremely overwhelming for people. And to try to think about targeting your marketing, which I think is kind of a crazy concept as well, because I think a lot of advisors aren't doing much marketing. I mean, they're going networking and there's a lot of activity, but how do you're saying networking, for example, how do you target that marketing, right? And it's totally doable, but it feels overwhelming. And so one of the things I want to share with the audience, and that I shared with you, your situation was a little bit different because you already knew you loved working with farm families, and you have this connection. Your husband is a farmer. You are a farmer's wife, So that was sometimes the best target market, if you will, quote unquote, is you or something close to you. So that was nice. I think most people, if they really start to think about it, there probably is that low hanging fruit. Like, hey, do I want to, I like to use the word cloning, as you know, but like if you were to clone one person, you can only clone that person 10 or 20 times. Like, would you be able to reach your revenue goals? And instead of making it complex, like I'm planting my flag and this is now my niche, or I'm planting my flag and this is my target market. What if we just take one person and clone them? And we could, and the way you do that is just picking, like, don't try to, I'm not telling you, Heather, but those of you listening, like, don't overcomplicate this. Women, especially, we overcomplicate things. Like, on the way to cloning as you're cloning this person, and if you're on the way to getting 10 or 20 of this one person 10 or 20 times, you'll get other clients that aren't that person. And that's okay. I'm not saying you have to say no to those people, but on the path to getting those 10 or 20 ideal clients through this cloning idea, just thinking about one person and trying to replicate that type of person, you'll get other clients, and that's fine. Yeah. And you get more revenue. But just the focus now to target where you're putting attention to get those people is towards that one person you want to attract. So you kind of knew farm families, but before we go to step 2, what was your fear around that? Because even though that was very close to you, did you have any fears come up like, oh no, now people are going to think I only work with farm families. I'm going to lose business. Like, what came up for you? Because I think that's very, very common that once I start to even clone my ideal client, then I'm going to start having to say no to people, or it's actually going to, minimize my opportunities instead of maximize them.
Right. Oh yeah. And even today I'll catch myself once in a while, not being all in with that. And I get it. Like, a lot of the general marketing out there within our industry gets pretty diluted down, right? It's not really niched and specific. And so, that was obviously a concern. And I totally agree that, I found out who I really want to work with and like working with, but a lot of other things have come along with it. I definitely look to work with farm wives and farmers and farm families. But with that, I have gotten really good at working with people that have plumbing companies and electricians and all of those. It's the same kind of process. They have a lot of the same needs in regards to planning and running their businesses. And so it's opened the door that way. And people know that, they relate to that, and I still have a lot of just general retirement planning that I do. But getting really good at helping farm families has made me very good at even all the tools and processes and systems that I needed to get good at. So,
and what happens is you starting to use language that starts to identify who that person is actually makes you more credible even to the plumbers, because just like everybody else, I work with retirees or, anyone who has millions and millions of dollars. You're working, it sounds more mission-based. It sounds more, more heart driven, right? So give them, let's say, just if we were to break it into step, and I didn't prepare you for this here, but step 2, what would you say is step 2? So
oh my gosh, this is a test, Robin.
So let's just, I can help you out because this is kind of my instant expert system. And I'm not trying to test you, but I'm just trying to give you some takeaways. So I talk about the instant expert system as actually 4 steps. So we'll just use mine so I don't put you on the line.
Perfect.
Sorry.
As soon as you say it, I'm going to be like, oh yeah, that's totally what I did.
It's hard to identify. Okay. So number 1 is who do you attract? And then 2 is, well, why do they care? Which is the messaging, right? So it's like, what are you saying to get them to, because we're trying to attract them. So what have you noticed with the language? And I kind of started alluding to that a second ago, but what have you noticed with the way that you're talking about the farmers or how you talk about what you do? How has that changed? And what is it that you say that attracts those people?
And I think working through your process and your system, that was one of the first things I did. I knew who I wanted to serve real early on. You and I spent some time together working on, we call it an audio logo, but it's, a lot of times other people will call it your elevator talk, whatever it is, but getting really clear on really good language that makes sense to them, and not like canned stuff. And so, and I help farm families pass the family farm on, not overpay the government and taxes, and maintain family harmony. That's what I do. And so that comes through everywhere. And I, we all work in this industry. We know things have to go through compliance. I get the language through compliance, and then I just have it, and I can just use that over and over again. And it resonates with my clients, and it resonates with what I do. So yeah, that's huge. Just getting, and it's not, we can't just use the cookie cutter same stuff, because that's not what people expect and need. So
Yeah. And we talked a little bit about this before we started recording, but I think one of the big differences that you said before was that it's not actually about you, it's all about them. And I think the big difference is, and even with sales, like, oh, sales seems so bad, I don't want to be salesy. Like, I don't want to be salesy either. But if we want to attract the person, we need to speak in their language, but there are two main things we need to talk about, and that's problems and results. Those two things are problems and results. So when you talk about what we call the audio logo is just basically, who is that person? What challenges do they have, or these, here with these challenges, and here are the results they get. So, it's hard to remember exactly what you said, but I know they're farm families. I know that some of the challenges are overpaying in taxes and passing on the farm. And I know some of the result there is going to be obviously passing on the farm, and also that having that harmony with the family. So
that's huge.
Yeah. Even hearing that once, it's very memorable, because like anyone, and not everyone's going to remember all those details. And I've worked with you for a while, but to remember, like, oh, she works with someone specific. She's not just like, oh, what do you do? I'm a financial advisor. Oh, okay. There's nothing that differentiates you there, except that, maybe the fact that you're a woman, since there are not that many, but still, like, there's really nothing that truly differentiates. Oh, you do holistic financial planning. Wow.
Everybody does that. Yeah.
You do holistic financial planning? I can sign me up right now. But instead, you have something that makes you stand out. This is why it's called the Instant Expert System, because you stand out as an expert. You stand out as an expert when you identify the person you're talking to, and then you talk to them by using messaging to actually attract that right person. And sometimes, like I know you've attended the appointment generator challenge, the tag challenge. In that, because messaging is sometimes hard to come up with, because some of you listening, you might be like, oh my gosh, I don't know the problems yet. I don't know what they want. And I don't know how to language that in a way that's going to be compelling, which is why in the tag challenge, we actually use a hook. And you can use messaging could be a hook. And so there's a lot of different ways you can hook them, but we use a specific hook in the appointment generator challenge. And those of you listening, you can go to try to find the next one. It's going to be femalefinancialadvisors.com. You can check it out. I know Heather loved it and has been using that stuff for the last year. But you can, you just being able to hook them is huge, because that's how you can attract them. But you cannot attract them without knowing the who. You cannot attract them without having some sort of messaging that's going to be compelling or that's going to hook them. And then the last two things I'll just give quickly, because I want you to talk more, Heather. But the third step is, where do you find them? And I want people to be able to find them online, because this is like, if you want an endless supply of prospects or leads, like, you need to be able to find them where they are, and where they are, especially during the pandemic, was online, right? So finding them, where to find them, and then what to drive them to next. And that basically is sales, right? It's like, what is the next step? What's the call to action? So tell us a little bit about, like, just maybe a story about, like, where you felt like you were able to, by using that system, you were able to get a client that maybe you wouldn't have gotten before, that you really feel like, again, it's not about you and you making more money. It's about you helping more people, but where you can say, oh gosh, this family, and because I, stuck my foot out, or I put myself out there, I was able to, and in this way, I was able to attract this family and also help them and look at their lives now. Like, and I know it's only been a year, but can you give us an example of that will help just like lock it in?
Yeah. I mean, I think there's all sorts of examples. And I think when I think of sales, I feel obligated to be able to help people, right? Like, that's why we're all here on earth, is to be able to help other people. And so I don't necessarily think of it as sales. I think of it as good communication. So I have an obligation to be really good at communicating how I help people and what I can do for them, and help them get clear on what they need. And so through the process, I think that's what I have gotten really good at. So, I mean, I could come up with 100 things, but 100 stories over the last year. But I think of one the other day. A gentleman came in. It was a dad and his son. And so dad's in his 80s and son is, in his 60s. And they haven't done any planning. And it's hard. The son doesn't know what to say to dad, and dad doesn't know really what to do. And, we just had a short conversation about, how I can kind of help. And dad was kind of going one direction. I said, we got to back up and get this done. And I wasn't even able to really get through some of the basic things that need to be done yet. And so we had a short conversation, got our next steps in place. And the son was so grateful at the end, just shook my hand and said, wow, thank you, and so it's good when you can help people, but it's the family communication and just that lack of planning that happens. So, yeah.
Yeah. And I think just kind of reminds me, like, just the difference between fact finding and then a true sales conversation, which is really not to sell them. It's really just to help them. And if you just take sell and replace it with help, then you truly will be able to have everything you want and give others everything they want. But being able to ask them questions and I know, because I know the process that you're using, but like it's about really understanding what they want, understanding what's holding them back, and understanding how to get them there in the most efficient and effective way. It's not about how much money they have in their savings account or their 401k or the 529, or I mean, at this stage 80 and 60 is probably not the conversation, but still, like, that's not the most important part of the conversation. That's almost like almost irrelevant until you're really getting to the planning stage. But it's human. Like I learned from one of my mentors, when I was talking about marketing, and he said, it's not B2B, it's not B2C, it's H to H, human to human. And I think it's about the attracting side is human to human. Like, I need to talk like a human being to the person in their language, and I need to know who that person is so I can use their language instead of mine, like 401k or rollover or this or that. Right. And that will attract that person. And then the ongoing conversation, like, of how do you drive them to get what they want, is really understanding, like you said, their needs and their wants and their desires, and just being kind of like a therapist or like a detective to just figure that out, to get them to be able to do that. And you'll get like so many people so grateful for that. And I know you're doing such amazing things in the world and helping so many people. So I'm grateful that I've had the opportunity to work with you and to see you do this. And also, you've been so generous to share with my community and share back about all this success, because it's sometimes, as much as we all want to hit big numbers and be the top producer, like, celebrating as a woman, like when you're actually starting to really make good money, it's I hate to say it's frowned upon. It's not frowned upon, but we women tend to belittle ourselves or not want to talk about it. It's like, we want all this thing. Finally want to get to 100 grand. Finally want to get to $1 million. And then you get there and you're like, oh, okay, I don't want to tell anyone because I don't want them to judge me, because I don't want it to all be about money and all this stuff. And you're going public to say, hey, no, actually, I'm proud of it. And that means I'm helping more people. And that's awesome. And can you just share with them last little tidbit about just because you've stretched so far outside your comfort zone, just to remember the conversation about like joining my program and how you were just like, I don't even know if I'm going to stay in the industry, just where face was there, and like how just taking that leap of faith and investing in yourself. And I'm not saying for my sake, but investing in you has gotten to you to be able to grow your business and help more people.
Oh yeah. I was super nervous about it, and I didn't know if I was going to stay. So I made a clause in the contract that I could get out if I wanted to. And then, I didn't tell my husband, right? And I thought, I could just see it playing out in tax time, like that I would have this bill for this coaching, and he would be like, what was that? But because we don't really talk about things till we sit down with that accountant. I don't know if any other marriages are that way. With our businesses. And, but by the time we got to the end of the year, it was so amazing that it didn't matter. It was a whole different conversation with the accountant that year for taxes compared to what had been the year before. So it wasn't even noticeable.
No problem. Now we got to pay more in taxes because you made so much money, Heather.
Yeah. Good thing I had that write-off, right?
Right. Yeah, now we're excited about that write-off. That's funny. I always say, don't worry. The spouses, they'll love me. They end up loving me. Like, it's always a little bit scary, but then in the end, let's just get you huge results. So I'm proud of you. Thank you for sharing. Those of you, if anyone here is you work at Thrivent, you guys are in Thrivent, connect with Heather. She does a lot of joint work. And this is something that's such a valuable thing that Heather has. It's very, very unique within this target. And she does a lot of seminars. Actually, touch upon the seminars real quick, and just anyone who's at Thrivent that might want to get connected with you.
Yeah, I do a farm succession planning workshop. It's got a different title now. We changed it up a little bit this year, which we're excited about. But it was amazing to pivot from face-to-face into the virtual world. And, it was a forced pivot, and it took me a little while to make it happen, but we've really honed in on it with Robin's help too, man. Like, we go through every step of the process and how we can make sure we have a good ending to our workshop to get people to the next step. I mean, I think that was one of the things. Another thing is, I'm the quarterback of the team when it comes to helping farm families with succession planning. And I talk about that. I think they a lot of times think they just need to go straight to an attorney, and really they need a quarterback. They need a really good financial advisor to help them through the process. And so That's what I do. And I love partnering with other advisors. And even if you're not with Thrivent, if you just want to connect with me and have a conversation, I'm totally open to that. There's such a need out there to help farm families. And again, I had 500 households on workshops a couple months ago, which was absolutely crazy. But with the virtual world, it worked out great. And I've got my summer schedule set for workshops, and then we'll do the next one after that. So yeah.
Awesome. Where's the best way to find, how do they connect with you?
Facebook is good. Heather Venenga-Whipple. Just look me up on there. That's probably the best. So
all right, hit her up on Facebook. All right. Thank you so much. And thank you.
Thanks, Robin. Thanks for your help.
Okay. Bye-bye.